For this Aircraft Power Plant 2 assignment, we'll be discussing about the effects of FOD on an engine. But before we start, FOD is the acronym for Foreign Object Damage, which is any substance, debris, or article alien to a vehicle or system which would potentially cause damage. To further illustrate the effects of FOD, we'll be using the incident of US Airways Flight 1549, known by some as the Miracle on the Hudson. Flight 1459 was a passenger flight from New York LaGuardia Airport towards the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, operated by an Airbus A320. The plane flew into a gaggle of Canadian geese minutes after takeoff. The Birdstrike then caused both engines to quickly lose power. As the plane started losing its altitude, it was determined that it would be unable to land at the nearest airport. Thus, under such circumstances, the pilot, Captain Chesley Sullenberger, was forced to ditch the plane on the Hudson River. Miraculously, the ditching was perfect, and all 150 passengers and crew members evacuated unscathed. Thus, the incident was also known as the Miracle on Hudson. Analysis from the inspectors, it showed that at least a total of 4 Canadian geese were ingested into both the left and the right engine that weighed at least 8 pounds each. Now, even though the engines were certified to be able to withstand the bird ingestion at a specified weight and still produce sufficient power to maintain flight, the weight of these geese far exceeded the certified limits, thus causing neither engines to be able to generate enough power to sustain flight. As a bird gets ingested to a turbofan engine, if the fans are not fractured, it shows that the damage is generally localized, as only the blade that impacts or slices the bird gets affected. Now, the number of blades affected is also dependent upon the bird's size, the rotational fan speed, the velocity of the bird with respect to the plane, and the impact angle. And such impact can cause the blades to permanently deform or even twist. Normally, because the fan spins rapidly, the fan blades protect the engine core by centrifugally slinging foreign objects outwards into the bypass duct. Therefore, most foreign objects that enter the engine inlet strike the fan blades and exit through the bypass duct, causing only the fan blades to get damaged. Also, if a bird enters the engine inlet near the inner radius, which is near the spinner, a portion of it may be ingested into the engine core because of the radius proximity to the core. In the case of Flight 1549, both engine spinners on the accident aircraft exhibited soft body impact damage, indicating that both engines ingested a bird very near the inner radius of the engine inlet, and that some of the bird mass entered the engine core, fracturing the low pressure compressor and inlet guide vane in each engine, which then initiated secondary damage to the low pressure compressor and the high pressure compressor. Immediately thereafter, the engine cores were incapable of supplying power to the fans. Therefore, the fans could no longer rotate and produce the sufficient thrust that could sustain flight. Under further inspections, damage to the left engine's high pressure compressor's variable guide vane blocked most airflow into the compressor. The insufficient airflow into the combustor to cool the engine and through to the low pressure turbine to drive the fan resulted in the loss of the left engine's power. For the right engine, the destruction of all the high pressure compressors variable guide vane and the fracture of several compressor blades caused the loss of directional control of the airflow into the compressor, thus causing it to stall continuously with no recovery possible, and eventually it caused the entire engine to start losing power. Through this incident, we can see that the ingestion of foreign objects into the engine, especially at the core, can be extremely devastating, given that engine components like compressor blades and such were never meant to withstand such impacts. Thus, we've come up with certain safety precautions to take note of, especially against bird strikes, such as staying vigilant for large flocks of birds that can be seen or is reported near runways, then delaying takeoffs or landings, or simply just diverting to another runway. If bird activity is suspected or known around an airport, pilots should be briefed and be prepared for such bird strikes. Another method would be to simply reduce the bird population around said airport. Officially, however, more efforts have been made to handle the situation after a bird strike occurs and cuts off the engine powers, such as training pilots to land an aircraft without engine power, or to modify the current small and medium flocking bird certification test standards to require that the test be conducted using the lowest expected fan speed instead of the 100% fan speed for the minimum climb rate. But there have been actions taken to prevent bird strikes to occur in the first place, such as the use of the wildlife hazard assessments to proactively assess the likelihood of wildlife strikes, and if the wildlife hazard assessment indicates the need for a wildlife hazard management plan. However, it was determined that it would place an undue burden on many airports that do not have a history of wildlife strikes. Thus, it was closed as an unacceptable action. Also, there have been talks of using avian hazard advisory system to track the movement of birds and radars to avoid flocks of birds entirely, and that seems to be more feasible. Thus, it was closed as an acceptable action. In conclusion, even though bird strikes are only one of many examples of foreign object damage, the incident discussed shows that any foreign objects that enters the core engine could devastate it, causing up to millions in repairs and even fatalities. And the best plan of action would simply be vigilant and avoid any FOD that could enter the engine at all.